Hi, good evening, and welcome to all the educators, parents, community members, Framingham Public School administrators, and elected officials. We have Spanish and Portuguese interpretation available for this evening, so if you're in need of interpretation, you can find that up here.
Buenas noches, yo soy Mauricio Perea, que necesita intérprete en español. Por favor, váyanse en acá y les damos el equipo para que escuchen. Gracias.
Boa noite a todos, eu sou o Luiz, intérprete de português. Se alguém precisar de português intérprete, eu estou ali. Fica à vontade. Obrigado.
Thank you. Tonight's forum and discussion is co-hosted by the Framingham Teachers Association and the Framingham Public School District. Thank you also to Mary Najumi, who is here from the MTA president, and to Susan Nickel, who is here representing the Office of Senate President Spilka. We will be celebrating the passage of the Student Opportunity Act, made possible by many calls, emails, and visits to legislators by educators and parents across the Commonwealth. Those who care deeply about the education of all children and join together to ensure our elected officials begin to fulfill the promise of equity and quality education for all. When we are persistent, when we take action together, we can win for our students and the community. We'll be reviewing the school committee budget and how the budget process works so we can understand how this intersects with the Student Opportunity Act. But most importantly, we will be asking for your ideas, thoughts, and priorities as stakeholders and the initiatives our district takes on using those funds. The Framingham Teachers Association has led conversations with educators in every school to gather ideas and input. Some of the examples of this are on the walls here. And this forum will expand the conversation to parents in the community. Those closest to the children, educators, parents, community, have essential insight into the needs of our schools and students. Framingham will be receiving approximately $7 million in additional funding this year, some of which is committed to ongoing expenditures, but a large portion is available for addressing the needs of the student population. And we need to hear from all of you about what you think the biggest needs of our students are. Right now, I'd like to introduce Adam Freudberg, the chair of the Framingham School Committee. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rachel. And thanks to Barbieri for hosting and to the FTA for collaborating with the school committee and the school department on tonight, and to all of you for attending. I want to just first recognize the whole Framingham School Committee for their commitment to this event and the partnership. Many of them are in attendance tonight: Karen Dempsey, Jeff Epstein, Beverly Hugo, Willie LaBarge, Jessica Barnhill, Scott Wadland. Am I missing anyone? I think that's the crew. Tiffany Maskell. Thank you very much. In a moment, I'll introduce the superintendent, but first just wanted to let you know what our role is. In a few moments, you're going to get a preview of a PowerPoint presentation the school committee has not seen yet. It's on our agenda tomorrow night. The school district is going to talk about their recent meeting with the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and all the different opportunities and the requirements as part of the Student Opportunity Act and what it offers Framingham, not just this year. It's very important to note this is an incremental bill. It's for the next 7 years. And so this is new. It's something that's long overdue after 25 plus years of talk from the State House and more. So it's a big win for all of us, and it's a big opportunity to collaborate. And so the presentation will give an overview about what that means and some of the opportunities that come from the many different buckets of initiatives that DESE, the state, and the legislation authorize. So the school committee's role is to continue to ask questions, to work on these slides and the development of the budget book with the FPS administration. And then on March 13th, they will be submitting it for school committee review and consent as part of the city process. That will be posted online on March 13th as part of the school committee's meeting packet for March 18th, which is the annual public hearing on the budget. At that night, we are interested in hearing from the public in person. You can also email us. Emails are on the bottom of the forms in front of you and are also on the school committee's website. After the public hearing on the budget, the school committee that night will also hear about the Student Opportunity Act implementation plan. And then on April 1st, the school committee will vote to enact that implementation plan, as well as submit the FY21 budget request to the mayor, The mayor then has 3 weeks to determine how to proceed and then submits the overall school budget as part of every other municipal department to the city council. So throughout the May and June timeframe, they will review the school department budget. So this is a multi-month process, but you're here at a really good time to help FPS staff develop the budget that will eventually come before your government officials. So we want to hear from you tonight and in the future. Come to our school committee meetings, send us an email, keep up the engagement. So thank you all again, and thank you to the MTA president for coming here as well, and to Susan from Senate President Spilka's office. The Senate president was a huge part of this bill. It wouldn't happen without her. And as a former school committee member, she's really stayed true to her roots of her first elected official role and really brought this home for all of us so Framingham can benefit. So with that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Tremblay, our superintendent, a tremendous partner of our community and the leader of this whole initiative, along with Mr. Lynch, to determine how the district proceeds going forward.
Thank you, Adam. I guess I'm supposed to stand over here for the best viewing. Good evening. I won't echo everything that's been said by the previous speakers, but I just want to once again welcome all of you tonight for being here. We're going to get right to the presentation. I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to so many on the FTA who've partnered with us in this effort. And I'd like to also give a shout out to the Explorers program, who's coordinating the child care this evening, and to our interpreting team for being here this evening. We appreciate you being here as well, and certainly to all of our friends from who are making the possible of televised through Facebook Live as well. So thank you for being part of that. At this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Susan Nickel. As Mr. Freuberg just mentioned, Senator Spilka has been instrumental in moving this initiative forward and bringing these great funding opportunities to Framingham. And so we're really thankful and we're grateful, and we look forward to hearing tonight about how we can use those dollars. But I want to just give you a moment on behalf of the senator. Thank you. Please welcome Susan Nickel.
Thank you, Bob. I am here just to bring greetings from Senate President Spilka. She was really excited that this was happening. As some of people said, this is basically the culmination of about 25 years of her work. She started out as a school committee member in Ashland and realized how out of whack, for a better phrase, funding was for Framingham and for Ashland. So she's been working on this, and voila, 25 years later, we're all in this room, and it's really exciting. As a parent of former Framingham Public School kids, it's really exciting for me to hear where the ideas are tonight. But again, she is really sorry that she couldn't be here. There's something going on in the State House that she had to stay for, and you'll notice that there aren't any other legislators here because there's something going on tonight in the House of Representatives. So lo and behold, I'm the lone person, but I am tasked with going back to them and kind of telling them about how great it is that so many of you people are here and some of the great ideas that are coming out. I think it's a really great aspect of the act that they want to hear from everybody and put the best ideas out there. So thanks to Framingham Teachers Association, Public Schools, and the school committee for putting this together. Thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Lincoln Lynch. If you haven't met Lincoln, Lincoln Lynch is the Executive Director of Finance and Operations. He's been with us for a couple of years now, and Lincoln will take us through, as Adam mentioned, a preview that will go to the school committee about our budget development process and how the Student Opportunity Act funding fits within that budget development. As you'll see in the slides, we've been months in the works on this budget development for the fiscal 21 year. So, Lincoln, I'll turn it over to you. We don't have a lapel mic for Lincoln, and he doesn't have a clicker for the laptop, so if everyone's okay, he'll just stay seated going through his presentation, so you'll be able to see the screen, and we'll bring down some lights so you have a better viewing of that. So, right on cue. Lincoln, take it from here.
Thank you, Dr. Tremblay. So we've got, I believe, 31 slides here for the presentation tonight. As Dr. Tremblay mentioned, this has been a long process. I think it started October 8th or 9th, 2019. And like I said, it's a long process, a lot of hours, a lot of time put in by principals, district leaders, Dr. Tremblay. The process starts with budget request sheets sent out to every principal, every director, where they fill out their requests, their expense requests, their salaries, their additional salaries, line by line, justifications, vendors. We have them go out and get quotes, So we have actual prices and not just, take what you had last year, multiply it by 3%, and that's the increase. It's a zero-based budget, expense side and salary side. It's something that we're proud of. We look at class sizes, we look at historical data, we look at current spending, and we kind of go from there. But I believe it was 37 or 38 hour-and-a-half long meetings to put this budget together, and you'll see that about halfway through where we are currently at. So we'll get started here. This is just a reminder. It's still in process. The FY21 budget is not completed, so what you see tonight is exactly where we are at now and the recommendation from my office. It includes level services plus some new positions that you'll see, and I break it down by salaries, new positions, expenses, additional salaries, and kind of give you the reasons why, give you some budget drivers where we're at. But I want to make it clear, this is not set in stone. We still have about a month to work through everything, expense side, see if there's any way we can reduce, find efficiencies, as well as on the staffing side too. As staff may leave and choose to go in another direction for the next school year, you could save 30, 40,000 in one teacher. And when you have 700, 800, it can add up quickly. So things change. The numbers have changed a little bit even since I submitted this presentation to school committee on Monday. So it's changing by the minute, really. So it's just a reminder. The other piece of this, that's why we're here. We want feedback. We don't want it just to be a one-sided situation where we're putting a budget together and not, is that ringing? Yeah, all right. And not get feedback from the community. It's something that we're committed to, and that's a piece of the Student Opportunity Act, is really to gain as much feedback as you can and implement that in the FY20 budget request. The third part, the Student Opportunity Act funding towards that targeted number that the Department of Ed put out. That's still being calculated. A big piece of it that you'll hear me say a couple times tonight is that the money is not just for new initiatives. It's for deepening current initiatives. So there could be some things going on in the district where we're going to continue next year, and that funding, the new funding that's come in through Chapter 70, is to be used and allocated to those current initiatives moving forward so we can continue to do those. And those are still being calculated as we go. Dr. Tremblay or Mr. Freudberg mentioned buckets. We're trying to figure out current initiatives that we're moving to next year that will fit into those buckets. So the calculations are ongoing. So we'll start with this slide here. Kind of just gives the intention of what the Student Opportunity Act is. It's really focusing on those subgroups, not achieving at the same high level as their peers. And here's that little piece that I keep putting in: adopt, deepen, or continue specific evidence-based programs. So I talk with some of my colleagues, my finance officials in other districts, and it's really making sure we continue those programs, those initiatives we have, and using these funds to do so. Just 7 observations that we kind of made in collaboration with a couple other districts. So as far as the funding formula, it finally establishes some higher foundation rates to get to the foundation budget, which we've been hoping for many years. It's going to be phased in over a 7-year time period. And those 5 areas are benefits and fixed charges, guidance and psychological services, special ed out of district tuition, which is a huge one that's been underfunded for many years in the millions, English learners, and low-income students. It redefines the low-income students to pre-2017 methods, establishes the foundation budget. This is a huge one that we're really happy about, that it's not, here's the new way we're doing things. We're going to wait for another, 27 years? I think 1993 was the last time. Every 10 years, they're going to look at that, which is huge. It adds transportation costs to the special education circuit breaker reimbursement, another huge piece We spend over $4 million in out-of-district transportation. So you'll see my calculations later on, but that is a huge piece that adds to the circuit breaker reimbursement. Commits to a 3-year implementation to fully fund charter school reimbursements. It increases the MSBA funding by $150 million, which we're currently working with. Not this new money, but the new Fuller project is through MSBA funding. And it requires each district to establish targets and achievement among student subgroups consistent with the targets established by the department. So those are just 7 observations that I felt was needed to share with the public here. There are requirements. So the 2 requirements that I kind of pulled out and wanted to present tonight. Any of the funding that comes from the Chapter 70, specific for the Student Opportunity Act, has to be accounted for in these 9 evidence-based programs, which we're calling, and many other districts are calling buckets. And I'll go through the 9 buckets when we get there. But those evidence-based programs supports and interventions to address persistent disparities among the student subgroups, like basically the intention of the act. The second piece, how we account for the funding and our plan. So if you received over $1.5 million in the Student Opportunity Act funding, you have to complete a long form, which we will be completing. It basically gives a 3-year plan. It shows the funding that's going to be going towards Student Opportunity Act. Again, it's new funding, and they also have in the budget that you have to submit to the Department of Ed, they have columns of FY20 funding, and then you're able to show the FY21 funding to prove that you're deepening those current programs in FY20. Here are the 9 evidence-based programs. I'll kind of go through them quick here. And they're labeled A through I. There is one here, the 10th one is J, and that's really any other program that improves student success. I don't know the exact language here, but this morning I was looking through it and I knew I should have added, but there is a 10th one that really shows, any funding that you can show that it's improving student success, why we're all here, you can put that into that bucket, which is J. So we'll go through these pretty quickly. Expand learning time, longer school day or year. Increase the opportunity for common planning, time for teachers, social services, supports students' social, emotional, and physical health. Hiring school personnel that best support, improve student performance, increase or improve professional development, purchase of curriculum materials and equipment that are aligned with the statewide curriculum frameworks, expanded early ed and pre-K programming, diversify the educator and administrator workforce, and developing additional pathways to strengthen college and career readiness. With the 9 buckets, DESE has also given 17 examples that districts can use in a way to find funds that are going towards student success. There are 17 here. I'll run through these really quick too. So we'll go from number 1, expand access to full day, high quality pre-K for 4-year-olds, research-based early literacy programs in pre-K and early elementary grades, early college programs focused primarily on students underrepresented in higher education, supporting educators to implement high quality, expand access to career technical education, after dark programs, increase personnel and services to support holistic student needs, inclusion, co-teaching for students with disabilities and English learners, acceleration academies or summer learning to support skill development, dropout prevention and recovery programs, diversify the workforce again, leadership pipeline development, increase staffing to expand student access to the arts, athletics, enrichment, strategies to recruit and retain educators and administrators, community partnerships for in-school enrichment, parent-teacher home visiting programs, labor management partnerships, and facilities improvement to create healthy and safe environments. And you'll see on that 17th, there's that letter J. In each parentheses after the 17, that's the recommended bucket that it should go into. In this presentation will be, I believe, available on the school committee website, as part of the presentation tomorrow night. We're going to be given the same presentation. So we get to the financial impact here. So the big thing, and I mentioned it a little earlier, the Student Opportunity Act funding is not, in addition to Chapter 70. It is a part of Chapter 70. So we received for this year $7,089,523 additional dollars for Chapter 70 funding. Again, which Student Opportunity Act is a part of that. So for next year, we're looking at over $58 million. So that almost 0.1 million is a number we have to remember while we're going through this. But there's no additional funds coming after that 7.1, in Chapter 70 or in the Student Opportunity Act. So that increase is all we're getting from the state. I just want to make that very clear. So DESE's recommendation based on that 7 million and change number, 2.7 million of that goes towards ongoing expenses. And this is just a recommendation. We confirmed it with the Department of Ed that they are not holding you to these numbers. These are recommendations. They understand that ongoing costs could be much larger than their recommended maximum Chapter 70 going towards those ongoing costs. So again, they're not going to be holding you to these numbers. This second part here, the recommended Chapter 70 amount towards ongoing or new Student Opportunity Act programs that fit into those 9 buckets is $4,347,619. Again, over the $1.5 million threshold, so we'll be doing a long form submission to the Department of Ed showing our 3-year plan with these funds. So far, we've started to calculate funding that we know is going to happen in FY21, and at this point, we have staff that we've added this year, FY20, after the budget was passed, to support students, to support schools overall. We've added many, many positions, almost $900,000 in positions based on enrollment growth, based on any sort of need in a particular school. So as you can imagine, $900,000 in positions where we've added during the year. Say you bring somebody in and their salary is $60,000. You bring them in January, you only have to account for $30,000 in the first year. But that next year, you know you're going to continue that program, that staff member accounts for $60,000. So again, when you bring somebody in halfway through the year, you only have to pay for half their salary, but the following year, you have to pay for their full salary. And that adds up really quickly. When you add all the positions that we've added in order to support the students, FY21, a big piece of the increase are positions being carried over to FY21 from FY20. So far, our calculations have shown just over $1 million so far that will fit into the, into the 9 buckets. We have many more dollars that are going to fit into those buckets as ongoing initiatives. So that number will grow as we move forward. We have meetings scheduled with senior leaders to kind of drill down as far as line by line what we're doing. For instance, in buildings and grounds budget, we have some increases to improve facilities. A piece of that will be accounted for in the FY21 SOA funding that will fall onto that long form. So a lot of the funding that we've received, that $4.3 million recommended by the Department of Ed, is going to include a significant amount of money being carried from 20 to 21. There's just not a ton of room for brand new initiatives, and you'll see that as we move forward here. So to keep what we have, we call that level service budgeting, plus legal compliance. We've identified over $1 million in positions we have to add next year to comply with legal regulations, mostly special ed positions. But it's $1 million that we have to have in order to support the special education students that are in the district. So if you do the math, which is what I've been charged to do, is to present the numbers, out of the 7,089,523, to keep what we have and add those legal compliance positions, that is just over $6.6 million, leaving $456,151 for brand new initiatives for FY21. Like I said off the top, we're still calculating. We can find efficiencies. I'm confident that we can, so that number will increase, that 456. But this is where we're at right now. I think it could be a shock to some that that's all there is remaining for brand new initiatives for 21, but that's what the numbers show. So if we are only going to receive the $7.1 million in funding for FY21 to add to our budget, that is the number that we have for new initiatives. I kind of make a little note here, 93.6% of the funds are needed to keep what we have. Any new funds will be spent in accordance with the Student Opportunity Act. Another thing that is not factored in yet, and the CFO and I need to come to an agreement, part of the new Chapter 70 funding has to do with health insurance costs, which is a city-side expense. I do not have to budget for our health insurance costs, but the city side does. So the compromise usually is, in most all districts, is you come to an agreement with the CFO, with the town accountant, with the mayor, with the town manager, whether you're in a town or city, and some of that money from the $7.1 million comes off the top in order to pay for increases for our health insurance costs for the following year. So we really need to sharpen our pencils and find efficiencies in this budget in order to allow for funding in FY21 for new initiatives. Because that health insurance number could increase by 3%, 4%, 5%, and you're talking a couple $100,000. So like I said, we're still finding efficiencies. This process is still ongoing. I'm confident that we'll be able to, like I said, sharpen our pencils and find money for new initiatives for 21. A piece of this Student Opportunity Act, like I mentioned earlier, is the circuit breaker tuition. We can be pretty confident that we can budget the reimbursement at 75%. And for those people who don't know what circuit breaker reimbursement is, say you have a student out of district that's $100,000 tuition. You take just over $45,000 off the top of that, which leaves $55,000. Then you take 75% of that number, and that's what the state reimburses you. So there's some misconception out there that you take the $100,000 and you multiply it by 75%. It's not the case. It's usually 4 times what the foundation budget is, but they're keeping it for FY21 at just over $45,000. We spend over $19 million in out-of-district tuition alone. So based on calculations here, we're gonna hopefully, if they keep it at 75, and like I said, we've been told from the Department of Ed that we can be confident at budgeting the 75%, we're gonna receive almost $6 million in circuit breaker funding. That offsets the operating budget. If we didn't have that circuit breaker funding, I would have to budget that in the operating budget. So this is a huge piece of the offset in every district's operating budget. The other piece of this is funding that we received this current year, we can carry to next year. Every district that I've spoken to that I know of uses what we call circuit breaker carryover to offset the next year's budget. And that's a plan for me, that's my recommendation as of today, to do that to offset the 21 budget. Again, that brings the operating budget number down. If we didn't have that, if we didn't carry it, our request for FY21 would be through the roof. And you'll see as we go through, there are many other offsets that come into this budget. One that's not in here is grants. We get over $8 million in grants. Again, offsets the operating budget. If those grants went away tomorrow, we have to increase the operating budget request by $8 million, and that would be an issue. So we budget hoping that we're being held harmless with those grants. We know some grants are going away, but for the most part, we don't budget any increase, because if we budget and it doesn't happen, then we're scrambling to find that difference, and we don't want to be in that position. So we budget based on the grant funds that we got this year, move it to 21, and again, it offsets by $8 million. The new part of the circuit breaker reimbursement, transportation. So the calculation here is based off of all of your FY20 out-of-district transportation costs, which I said was over $4 million. So I made the math easy here. You have $4 million in out-of-district transportation costs. The eligible cost of that $4 million, the state set at 25%. So then you get 50% of the eligible costs. You do not get 50% of the total costs. That would be great, but we don't get that. So 50% of eligible costs is $500,000. A brand new budget offset that is brand new for FY21. Again, if we didn't have that, I would have to budget the full $4 million. And right now we budget $2 million in the operating budget and $2 million in the 240 grant. So again, just another new piece to the Student Opportunity Act. Here is a slide that shows our proposed level services budget. I have an asterisk there because it's level services, but it includes the legal positions that we need to stay in compliance for FY21. Our current budget is $138,484,986. The request at this time, level services plus legal compliance, is a 4.79% increase. This year we received a 4.11% increase, very generous. If you look over the past 10 years, Framingham Public Schools has received a very, very fair percent increase every year when you look back at it. So I think the city side has supported us, and we hope to continue that. We hope to keep those relationships with city officials, and we get at least the 4.79%. So we have some money to do new initiatives. You'll see the breakdown here. It's over $105.5 million just in salaries. And I'll show some budget drivers as we move along here. Legal compliance, over $1 million. Additional salaries, which includes, you have to cut me off? Yep. Really?
Yeah. Well, we have to make sure we have time for input and for questions. So
Okay.
I don't know if there's a clean spot to.
Yeah, I think that.
Make sure you get the driver's slide, I think is.
Yeah. So let's do this real quick.
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's, certainly tomorrow night more information.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we want to make sure we hear from, sorry to give you the cane.
No, it's fine. So real quick, the level services plus legal, 4.79. Here are the drivers. The contractual salaries, over $2.5 million increase for next year. And that includes a $1.5 million turnover savings, which we just started budgeting this year. So that in past years, you would hit a stopping point, say today, and you would say, everyone who's currently here, we're budgeting for next year. It's a $90,000 position, which someone could retire, and next year you have a $40,000 savings. We factor in $1.5 million in turnover savings, because that's what we see almost every year. And if we didn't do that, we'd have a surplus, and that's not something I want. We want the money to go into the classroom, to the kids, so we budget that to cut out and create opportunities elsewhere. The legal compliance is over $1 million. The out-of-district tuition is up $1.5 million. The regular day transportation is up only $133,000, but it's a 2.5% increase. And then there's some variables that could drop the FY21 request, which is the preneed lease, almost $500,000. And then either up or down, we decide on new staff requests. I think that's probably a good place to stop and ask for questions. I don't know how we're doing this. Dr. Tremblay? Okay. You gonna take it? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Lynch. So now we get to the part of the evening that I'm sure many of you came here for, which is to voice your concerns, to talk about the things that you would like to see in our schools here in Framingham. So we're going to take 10 minutes at the tables where you're seated now to have a breakout session for everyone to sit, to talk, to think about the things that you would like to see this Student Opportunity Act funding used for, the changes that you would like to see in Framingham Public Schools. And if you're looking for inspiration, these posters that we have around the wall here, they come from all of the Framingham Public Schools where the teachers have had a brainstorming session already on the kind of programs and services and additional staffing that they would like to see the Student Opportunity Act used for. So we'll take 10 minutes so you can get to know your neighbors and chat about public school funding. Thank you.
Test, test. Test, test.
This is your 5-minute time check. So in another 5 minutes, we'll be asking you to report back on the things that you discussed. Hi, everyone. So we'd like to regroup. We're going to regroup now, and we'll be passing the mic to get some of your feedback, some of your ideas about how you would like this money spent. So raise your hand if you would like to be the first table to speak. What would you like to say about the Student Opportunity Act? I think we have to turn on. Yeah. Oh, could we have everyone's attention over at the center table? And Sharon, so will you tell us what you talked about with the Student Opportunity Act?
Well, I'm just I'm just concerned out of $7 million, there's $456,000, which doesn't seem like a whole hell of a lot to do anything with.
Do you want to repeat that?
I'm concerned that out of $7 million, we have $456,000 for new programs, when we don't have enough right now for existing programs.
And I'd just like to follow that up with a question. So if we're using $6,633,372 from the SOA funds to continue our level funding plus our legal increase, what would we have done if we hadn't gotten the $7 million from SOA?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my numbers here only include funding from the state. Usually when you go into the budget process, you don't get a huge influx of money from the state, $7 million. So there's a combination between state funding and local contribution. So the tax increase that the city gets, the funding they get that they'll use for next year's budget, isn't included in this money. So if we only got $5 million in the SOA money, we would request the city to pitch in $2 million from the local contribution. So at this point, my budget does not include any requests of local contribution from the city side. So school committee might make a motion to increase the request, which means the city has to pitch in, which would increase that $456,000 number. I hope that answers your question.
We are a mix of parents and also Framingham educators at this table. We first talked about class size, but then talked about space being prime and not having enough space to increase the number of classes. So then we talked about increasing staff, and we talked about kindergarten and having full-time kindergarten aides in every elementary school. And we also talked about the transition from kindergarten to first grade being very difficult and trying to have more aides in first grade, because that's where a lot of the reading and the developmental skills are happening. We came in with grand plans for universal pre-K, but seeing the money, realized that that was quickly squashed. So that's why we focused on the younger ages. And then we talked in general about social emotional needs for children across the board, not just at Title I students, at schools that they all need it, and more support for ELL students as well across the board.
Great, thank you. Are there other groups that would like to share what you discussed about the Student Opportunity Act funding?
We discussed that with this money mostly in matching what the schools wish for, it would mostly be spent on personnel. Support personnel predominantly, special ed, ELL support, and social emotional learning. So especially in the, I can only speak to elementary, but in the lower grades and in the elementary schools, those three factors seem to be the largest. We don't really want the money to be spent on materials or buses or anything concrete like that. We'd like personnel to be part of the job, because the structure of a 1-person to a 25-person classroom doesn't seem to be meeting the needs of the students that we have in front of us. So more hands on deck would make a better difference with the students that we have.
Hi, my name is Am Cecile Forti. I teach at Framingham High School. I taught at Fuller Middle School for about 10 years. And I'm also an ethnic minority leader in the state and the national union. My hope is that some of this money obviously goes to foreign language learning and ELL support. I think across the board, I'm looking at the posters and seeing this as a theme all through Framingham, and I imagine through most of the state. But I also was hoping that some of this might go to support staff in the health, family, and consumer sciences. I find that having gone from middle school to high school, some of our students are lacking some really basic skills for self-care, just like, you know, I mean, there's a variety of things that they are lacking, but I do feel that that particular staff would be able to address some of those needs long-term for the students and hopefully impact them, you know, when they become parents down the line.
Yeah, and just to speak for hopes of what we had been hoping that the $7 million could go towards. At Woodrow Wilson School, we have a very large number of English learners, and we're getting more newcomers all the time who right now are going into the English language classroom. And in the past here in Framingham, for our newest students who are coming into the country and didn't speak any English, we always had either a bilingual classroom or a co-taught classroom where there was an ESL teacher and a classroom teacher that could support their needs until they were ready to transition out into SEI. We haven't had that model and those classrooms for a long time, and now we're getting a huge influx of brand new English learners who don't speak any English, and they're struggling in the English language classroom. Teachers are trying their best to work with them. I'm an ESL teacher, and in second grade, I have a caseload of 74 students in second grade, plus 9 in first grade. That includes 16 absolute newcomers, and I am just so limited in what I can do for those brand new students, and we're really struggling. And it's also really challenging for our native English speakers who need extra support from the classroom teacher when the classroom teacher has to be giving so much support to the students who don't speak any English, as well as for our English learners who are at the intermediate level. So if you take a look at the Woodrow Wilson poster, across the board we're looking for more ESL teachers, more native language tutors, and programming for our newcomers. We need a comprehensive program for newcomers across the district so that they can transition into SEI classrooms and be ready for success. So I'm really, really sad to see that we only have $456,000 to meet just the incredible needs that we have in this district.
Great, thank you. Other comments from tables? Would anyone else like to share what they discussed about Student Opportunity Act funding? Well, if there are no further comments, I guess we'll move into the celebration portion and the, oh, okay. Oh. Ah. Okay, all right, so we'll pass the mic to Dr. Tremblay.
Oh yeah, we want to do that now, or we can just respond to some of what we heard. It's up to you. Okay, sure, perfect. Yeah, Lincoln and I will share the microphone on this one. Should I go over here, or can you get me? Okay, good. So just to be clear, that I know that bottom line nets out what appears to be obviously a lot lower than the $7 million, and Lincoln can speak to those details more than I'll be able to do off the top of my head from the numbers he's been looking at. But as I scan through the various charts, I'm encouraged with what some of you may not have seen in the details of the budget that we'll be presenting. And in that detailed budget, a lot of what's on the board is included. So for support for student services, for example, or special needs, as Lincoln had pointed out, we've accounted for a lot of that already. So that's, I guess what that is affirming for me is to see what's on the board is the same things that we're seeing. We're also aware of the increase of English learners coming into the district. We're aware of the needs of our special education students. We hear you loud and clear tonight too, which is very validating, but the directors of those respective departments who've helped build this budget have also given voice to this. So it will be helpful, and again, if for some of you have some specific questions, you may want to just, if you have the time to spend time with Lincoln and I, and we can go through those lines of the budget. It's a pretty comprehensive document, and I don't know if the details, the draft hasn't been shared yet, right, the line details? But we'll be going through that, so stay tuned as you hear us present to the school committee and in public forum events to hear how we've built into the budget some of the specific requests that are here. And some of what I'm seeing at a quick glance are more like housekeeping operational things that we should be able to address tomorrow, like, for example, water fountains. A water fountain wasn't working here. Like, that should be something we should take care of tomorrow, right? That's a fix for now. It's not Student Opportunity Act money as I see it. So we're also going to take a look in working, as I was talking with Chris Mulroney earlier, as they chart out on a spreadsheet. I've asked for a spreadsheet of all of these points so that we can respond line for line with all of the feedback, so that we can make clear as a follow-up to this as to what we've already included in the budget, what items that we'll take care of in the current fiscal year, FY20, and what will carry over into the next proposal for the school budget. So I hope that helps. The other comment I wanted to respond to, pre-K, the effort to expand pre-K is already baked into the budget for year one. We may be looking at expanding that in years 2, 3, 4, all the way through. And there's more detail to come on this. I'm not prepared to give a full commentary on that tonight. But a commitment to universal pre-K for 4-year-olds is very much in the works. As members of the school committee well know, many of whom are in this room tonight serve on that subcommittee. We've been visiting campuses. We have a vision for how we want to expand that access in Framingham. So that is very much not off the table. So don't think that for a second. And I just want to make sure I responded a little bit to some of the points that have been made, not to take it away from the conversation, but just to acknowledge, if anything, that we hear you loud and clear, and we share many, if not all, of the same priorities across these chart tablets. So do you have anything else you wanted to add to that? Okay. So now I guess we'll go into, before we break bread, cut cake, whatever it is, we'll go back to the public comment portion. Thanks.
Sure. Oh, I'm going to sit. My name is Glenda Cohen, and I'm an ESL teacher at Framingham High School. And I'm here to represent what teachers at Framingham High School have been saying for a number of years, and that's that we need alternative pathways to get our kids to graduate. We're stuck in an old model of structuring our high school that thinks that all kids will attend school during daylight hours and have college as a goal, and that's just not the reality. This one-size-fits-all approach is not working. Specifically, in addition to the traditional academic path, we need 2 other graduation pathways. We need, and I'd really like you to hear this, we need an academic night school, and we need more vocational options. And some of you may think, because we have Flyer by night, that that's a night school, and that's not. That's an enrichment program for adults. There are no academic offerings. And thinking that Keefe Tech is meeting our students' needs is false, because the selection criteria for Keefe Tech is very, very stringent, and it's not meeting the, they only accept a fraction of the number of students who want vocational training. We are doing an excellent job at the high school for kids who want to go to college, but we are not meeting the needs of students who are chronically absent and tardy, low-income students who need to work and are falling asleep at their desks because they're working so many hours. We're not meeting the needs of in-school dropouts, who are kids who do come to school but don't go to class. And we're not meeting the needs of students who are overaged and undercredited, which means we have 16-year-olds who are 16 and freshmen because they've repeated freshman year, and they're failing now, so they're going to repeat next year. So we'll have 17-year-old freshmen, and that's not uncommon, but I can tell you that they don't graduate. And Dr. Tremblay, as you know, 2 years ago we met with you and discussed a proposal where we gave you some really compelling data on our dropout rates, failure rates, absences, numbers being retained, and you know, we didn't get any feedback at that time. Principal Banach is really supportive of these kinds of initiatives, but without central office approval and encouragement, it went nowhere. And so, and just as an aside, I'd like to also mention that working on these pathways would alleviate the critical space shortages that we're having at the high school. And I really don't think that it would have a tremendously profound impact on the budget because we'd be reallocating staff like we're reallocating students. So I'm just here to urge you to give these opportunities to our students like Boston, Worcester, Chelsea, and Brookline have. And we owe it to our students to adapt our model. And we've wasted a lot of time. We've wasted at least 2 years. And so I really hope that we are able to move on this initiative. Thank you.
Thanks. If I may just comment on that. I don't know that we've wasted 2 years because we've been having conversations quite a bit. In fact, to the point where the department I've invited the Massachusetts DESE to come out and talk with us about some alternative pathway programs. What we have to be careful of is that we don't give out a diploma that is weighted differently, right? So it's the same diploma that we give. So students who attend Thayer, for example, I've been spending a lot of time talking with the Thayer staff and the vision that Ann Lamb had when the school came online, long before I was here. And now students who are just at the threshold of meeting those credits to actually graduate, get their diploma, and move on, students are going to Thayer now with 0, maybe 5 credits, not the 2 or 3 credits they need to make it over the threshold. So we've got to go back and reset the deck on which students are best served in a school like the Thayer Alternative Campus, and also how we can create alternative pathways at Framingham High School. And your point is well taken. I spent a lot of time talking with Carrie. Carrie and I have worked together for years prior to coming to Framingham, so we've built programs like this before successfully. I think there's a couple things in play. One is we have to make sure that we're not diluting a diploma, and that so that as we give a high school diploma, that there's credits that the state requires, and there's local credits, as you know, that are required as part of that. So that's an ongoing conversation, but again, to your point, we've invited the state in, because this is one of those circumstances that I want prior approval and not looking for forgiveness later before we start handing out diplomas that have a different value to them. So that's really important. On the point of looking at night school, or however we extend the learning opportunities for kids, we are working, as you probably know, from being in the high school, working with the Carpenters Association, trying to give vocational opportunities. John Evans and I, Superintendent at Keefe, have a very good working relationship. We've expanded opportunities. We've increased our enrollment there, capacity by 11%. So we've done a tremendous amount of giving more opportunities to Framingham students that had been, until the last couple of years, underrepresented at Keefe. So we are very much working on that pathway as well, in addition to looking at other possible Chapter 74 offerings at the high school. What will be important to consider in the next round of negotiations with teachers, and something that I would encourage, and I'll put it out there publicly now, is an opportunity for us to think about some kind of flexibility in a teacher's day, where could we imagine a school where teachers could come in at one time and leave at one time, or then come in maybe an hour later or 2 hours later and leave 2 hours later, leave 3 hours later, and have this idea of a school day that extends beyond what we would traditionally think of being this sort of, 7 to 2 or whatever the model is. So there is some out-of-the-box thinking, but before you can roll those ideas out, they've got to be vetted. So that does take time in public education, so I'm sorry it hasn't happened sooner than it has, but please be assured that the conversations have been happening, and we are quite possibly at the brink of making some of this happen as a pilot. So thanks for your comments.
I'm just concerned about space. Speaking to addressing what, I don't know your name, Linda said, that Thayer School can only have 50 kids in their program because of fire issues. They're busting at the seams right now. Walsh Middle School is busting at the seams to the point where we're going to have to double up on classrooms. The new school that's being built is going to be smaller than the existing school, and we keep getting bigger and bigger as a district. So I just don't know where the space is going to happen and how we're going to address the needs of our students.
So Thayer is an interesting one. The points you've raised are good ones. You may have 50 students that the school could accommodate. You don't have a daily attendance rate of that, for better or for worse. You don't have a daily attendance of 50 students attending there. And frankly, I don't think you have necessarily the right students always attending there, because those are students who are looking to get credit recovery. You could actually improve access to more students, right? If the students were just needing to get over the finish line, that could be accomplished in one semester. It can't be if a student's going to Thayer and they're starting from 0. So by putting the right students who are at the cusp of finishing and getting them through and seeing them to graduation is really important. That will help to allow more space. The points about Walsh and Fuller, so that's a complicated one, because there's an MSBA, Massachusetts School Building Authority, does not allow schools to be overbuilt, at least not schools that they participate in funding. So if you want to fund out of pocket, you can build a school as big as you want. When you're working with the Massachusetts School Building Authority, there's consideration given to enrollment projections. Now that said, and this fits in with Walsh or any other school, when you start doing enrollment projections, there's two ways to do that. One is this sort of cohort-like enrollment. It's not a forecast, but it's a cohort just projection. So students who are in one grade, you assume that number in some percentage based on years past of how many would leave and how many arrive, and you carry that number forward. So when you look at the NESDEC, which is the very popular organization that many districts use in the state, that number would actually project Framingham's enrollment to decline over the next 10 years. We worked with a demographer to look at this differently, and he looks at very different kinds of data points, particularly the turnover of housing. This gets a little bit complicated, and we've asked Jerry McKibben, who's our demographer, to come out and talk with the public in the school committee in May. He did a previous study for us. And what I mean by that is he's looking at data differently in terms of turnover of neighborhoods. And we think about, roughly, we have about 6,000 houses in Framingham that are due to turn over. And that's going to have an enrollment drive that's arguably going to be more impactful than the number of apartments that are being built, because you have larger houses than you have so many 1 or 2 or 3 bedroom apartments. Now that's assuming that only 1 or 2 people live in the 1 or 2 bedroom apartments. So you could have families that move in, and how is that regulated? So it gets to be pretty complicated pretty quickly, to answer your question, but as the interest rates drop in the community, there's a possibility for mobility of empty nesters to find other kinds of housing to the extent that affordable over 55 or older is available in the community. That may or may not be the case, but when those neighborhoods turn over is when you're going to see the higher enrollment growth. We are looking at projections over the next 10 years to top out at the high school at about 20, he was saying 2,600, he being Dr. McKibben, about 2,600. So when you look at the actual capacity of our buildings, we're not under capacity for the number of students that we have based on the projections, even with a margin of error of, let's say, 2% adjustment year over year. But we are watching that closely. It's very hard to get a handle because you have a lot of students that come in and come out in a given year. But we've netted about 169 students or so in the course of this school year. That's the net. That's the actual add to the bottom line. So yeah, there is a challenge for us. But you know, Walsh's capacity as a building, not that you'd want to do this, but the capacity, actually occupancy load is 1,200. You wouldn't want to put 1,200 students at Walsh, right? But that is what's happening, and we're watching that very carefully. I don't think we're at a point of considering a new high school or having to build, have double sessions or these kinds of creative solutions. But we are watching the enrollment year to year and trying to make sure we pay close attention to that. So I don't know much more I can say about enrollment, but it's obviously front of mind. I don't know how you want to gauge. I'm going to let you guys. We'll respond, but let you guys moderate. Do you want me to respond to each of these, or you want it to just let people talk? It's really up to you. It doesn't matter. I mean, if I have an answer, we'll give it, and if I don't, I'll just tell you I don't have an answer.
This might be for Link anyway. So I was a Potter mom, and then a Cameron mom, and now I'm a high school mom, and I was going to talk a lot tonight about the mental health issues at the high school and some great programs that exist there, like RFL and Bridge, Cornerstone, and Thayer, and how I would love to see those expanded, because all these kids we see struggling through elementary and middle are going to get to the high school, and I think those programs are going to be even in more demand once they get there. But then I see this 450 number, and I say, wow, that's going to be quite the street fight among everybody trying to get those dollars. So I think my question is now, what's the best case scenario you can see that where that number gets bigger? Is there any way we will see that number grow, whether it's the city taking less circuit breaker money? Beverly Hugo understands that. Chapter 70 money, she understands that better than I do. Or is there some way where we can see that number growing? Because I think we would all like to see that. Thanks.
So yeah, it could grow depending on the decision that the city makes as far as what increase to give us. My numbers, like I said before, are just state funding for an increase, and that's it. Every other year, there's been state funding, Chapter 70, plus the local contribution. So if we decide to increase that budget request up from 4.79 to 5.5 to 6, the local contribution will have to come in to fill that gap, and that would increase the $450,000 number. We can also go back and make tough decisions on the expense side, still keep what we have staff-wise, but we can decide not to improve some programs for next year, put it on hold to FY22, and that will increase that number. As the expense side goes down, we can possibly take some more risk in some places. It's tough to do because if it doesn't turn out the way you want it, you could be back in front of City Council asking for more money. It's not something I want to do. I would never want to be in the red. That's how I lose my job, and I don't want to get to that point. But I am confident that we can sharpen our pencil and increase that number. So I'll say it again, the 21 budget process is still ongoing. So I'm pretty confident we can increase that number.
Good evening. My name is Audrey Hall. I'm a resident of District 2. I have a couple questions, but if there's time. The first question I have, Lincoln, I think you said that it's going to cost over $6 million just to maintain everything that's being done right now, right?
That's correct. Well, it's 5.5 million plus 1.1 million in legal compliance staffing. So we're adding over $1 million in new staffing for next year.
In new staffing,
Yes.
okay. The reason I'm asking that is because you also mentioned earlier that you're using zero-based budgeting. So I'm wondering why you would just include everything you're doing right now into the base budget and then add on to it, because zero-based budgeting means you start over and you look at what you need and what you don't need.
That's right.
So I would think that a different approach might find some additional funds by revisiting and looking at the changing enrollment, changing needs of the student population, reconfiguring your budget in a true zero-based budget to get to where you need to be, instead of just taking everything that you're currently doing and then adding on top of that. So that was why I wanted to ask you about that comment.
Yeah, so when I say that, I mean on the staffing side.
The $6 million?
But it includes expenses too, increases in expenses. And I'm pretty proud of the budget process that we went through with the zero-based budget. We had principals basically justify every single dollar that they asked for. And in previous years, it was you had a $2 million budget on your expense side, add 3%, and you're off you go.
So did you see any significant changes, new programs, getting rid of old programs? And,
Yeah.
and do you have a list of some of those that the public can see?
We can provide that.
That'd be great. May I ask another, or is someone else waiting? Okay, do you want to ask another? Okay, thank you. My second question had to do with your comment that you just started budgeting turnover salaries.
That's correct.
Was that fiscal 20?
20, yes.
Okay. Do you have a chart that shows, and is that the same as breakage?
Yes.
Okay. So do you have a chart that shows what your actual breakage has been year over year for like the last 5 years, and what you've budgeted for next year in terms of percentage and dollars?
I could probably come up with that, yes.
Okay. The trending of that would be very helpful.
Yeah. And
Okay.
I just started last year, so my first year was when we started the turnover. So before that, the way that things were budgeted was different than my philosophy.
Right. So for the years prior, what you would have the percentage of breakage without dollars, I would imagine. No, or maybe you could have both. But
Could have both,
it would be nice to be able to go back. I think everyone knows what the breakage is over year. That's just not necessarily reported and budgeted. But I think that was the cushion. There was some cushion in the budget until it was budgeted that way. And most of the time, people depend on some breakage for a little bit of cushion. So I understand that.
Absolutely, but I think there still is a misconception about cushion and surplus. Those funds would be used for something else, whether they transferred it to the expense side and covered some project that they were going to wait to the next year. There's never really a cushion. There's always places to go, and strategically you put funds that will offset the following year.
Yeah, it's just a cushion in a line item, a surplus or a cushion in a line item, which is why I was kind of curious about your comment about the circuit breaker, because you said that that your plan is to offset the 21 budget with the 20 surplus in the circuit breaker.
Correct.
I remember years ago when it was approved to create a circuit breaker like a special ed stabilization fund. And there never was one before that, and then one was created relatively recently. And so I'm just wondering, what was the surplus in the fiscal 20 circuit breaker fund, and what is it that you're carrying over from that fund?
I believe we used $2 million. I'll have to get you that number, exactly what that is. But the
So there's a $2 million carryover in circuit breaker into the fiscal 21 budget.
It's basically to offset the next year's budget. If-
But it was less than what was budgeted. The actual expense was 2 million less in '20 than what was budgeted. Because
Yes.
that's how you get to carry it over, right?
Well, yeah, so you offset it, right. So if you don't do that, if city council decides or someone decides we're not allowed to do that, my budget for '21 will increase by 1.5 million to cover those tuitions.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
So I think we just have time for one more question, and then I know we have some youngsters here, and maybe some of us not so youngsters, who might want cake. And maybe while we're having cake, if anybody has any additional questions, we can pass the mic again.
Just a quick question. So the budget you just presented, just to clarify, make sure I'm understanding it correctly, that is just money from the state, doesn't include any money from the city?
Correct.
How much money did the city give us towards our budget last year?
I'll have to get you those exact numbers, but it was.
Ballpark.
It was a blend.
A ballpark.
2 from local, 5, I know we got 5 in chapter 70. No, we did not. Yep.
Put it this way, over the last 10 years, the local contribution went from 69 million to about 88. It's about 2% increase on that base over that period. So if we're at 88 million right now from local contribution, if the city decided to give us nothing, in which case we'd only be living on chapter 70 money, which means that every other city in town would be paying for our uniforms, but not us. It would be an unusual year. We expect on the school committee finance subcommittee, we fought this thing last year of trying to not give a large enough local contribution. I expect the city to add on at least $1.8 to $2 million. Framingham taxpayers should be contributing something to the increase. And if they included another 2 million on top of what was talked about here, that'd be $60 on the average person's tax bill. So Framingham has to step up to invest in education, in my view. We're very lucky to get the 7 million, but that's meant to improve the school system, not pay for the lights to go on.
So I can get you the breakdown over the past 10 years of local versus chapter 70.
All right. Thank you, everyone. So thank you to everyone who came tonight, who participated in tonight's forum. Thank you to those who tuned in on Facebook Live. We do have a survey, an electronic survey that's being circulated. So if you didn't get to attend, or if you're here tonight and you think of something, at midnight tonight you want to contribute, you'll be able to contribute your thoughts online. So some closing remarks. There's a lot of discussion left about the Student Opportunity Act. And so while this is, a momentous occasion, a real opening in the conversation about educational equity and funding, and a real step forward for Massachusetts and for Framingham, there's obviously a lot of work still to be done. On that note, the MTA and FTA are also working now on a public higher education campaign. So we're thinking about those of our students who are going to be graduating, going on, and especially thinking about public university. How are they going to afford that with the rising cost of tuitions and fees at our state colleges and community colleges? So that's another campaign to look out for and get involved in, to make sure that education is equitable and accessible for all. And Dr. Tremblay, did you want to make any comments before we cut the cake?
I feel like I'm at a wedding. No, I just want to say I want to say thank you for hosting tonight. I want to thank you all for the MTA's partnership, FTA's partnership with us tonight. It's nice to have these joint efforts that we do this together and work all in the spirit of cooperation on behalf of our children. So certainly there's more to come in this work. I would encourage you. We'll make sure we make the feedback that's here tonight. If it's not already captured, email us directly. We'll add it to that spreadsheet document, because the plan is, again, we'll take these line by line and we can comment on how we're going to fund that, or if we are, or if we're not going to fund it, why not, and we can give you that great feedback. This is really helpful for us to hear. There'll be more opportunities to give input with the school committee at upcoming meetings, and certainly more. There's about 30 or so more slides that Lincoln didn't get to tonight about the budget, and there'll be more of the details and the nuance. If you have specific questions, feel free to reach out to either of us, and I would be happy to respond. So thanks again, everybody. I guess cake is going to be cut somewhere over here, and we will be, oh, the mayor's here too. Good evening, Mayor Spicer, who's joined us tonight. I know Priscilla Sousa from the school committee also joined us earlier. I don't know if she's around somewhere. Oh, yeah, she's over here. She was over there before. I have to keep trying to track her down. Are there others from the committee that have joined us? Just to acknowledge, Willie, you were here before. You got a shout out already. He's serving Coca-Cola if you need one. It looks like. And once again, thank you all for being here tonight. We'll be around for a little bit. We have to run to a city council meeting, and so we'll stick around for a little bit in case you have questions. Thanks again.